Ladies and gentlemen, liars don't always expose themselves with big lies. They slip through in questions that sound innocent, even caring. But make no mistake, those questions are weapons designed to twist your mind, make you doubt your instincts, and hand over your power without even realizing it. Today, I'm going to show you the 5 questions liars use to manipulate you, and once you see them, you'll never fall for them again. When someone tries to deceive you, they rarely come at you head-on. They don't announce their intentions. Instead, they use questions as tools, slipping them into conversations in ways that make you doubt yourself, distract you, or push you into giving them what they want. Manipulation isn't about brute force. It's about subtlety, and the people who use it best know how to dress their motives up in words that sound innocent. If you want to protect your mind, your boundaries, and your truth, you need to recognize the 5 questions liars use to manipulate you. Once you see them for what they are, you can't unsee them. And that's exactly the kind of awareness that gives you back your power. The first question is, why don't you trust me? On the surface, it sounds like an appeal for reassurance, a vulnerable moment where someone is opening themselves up to you. But beneath that surface, it's a trap. By asking why you don't trust them, they've flipped the conversation. Suddenly you feel like you're on trial, forced to justify your intuition or your suspicion. That's how manipulators work. They make you question your own instincts. Instead of answering their question, pause. Ask yourself, why are they so desperate for me to trust them right now? A person of integrity doesn't demand trust. They earn it through consistent actions. When you hear this question, recognize it for what it is, an attempt to make you doubt the little voice inside you that knows when something's wrong. The second question is, don't you believe me? It sounds similar to the first, but there's a different layer here. This one isn't about putting you on trial for mistrust. It's about cornering you into compliance. If you say you don't believe them, you risk being labeled the bad guy, the cold, skeptical one who's unwilling to give someone the benefit of the doubt. If you say you do believe them, you are locked into their version of events, even if every cell in your body tells you it's a lie. This question isn't seeking truth, it's seeking submission. Liars thrive on that moment where you feel uncomfortable, where you'd rather smooth things over than confront them. But real strength is choosing discomfort over deception. When you hear someone ask, "Don't you believe me?" It's not your job to prove belief, it's their job to prove honesty. The third question is, would I lie to you? This one is powerful because it disguises itself as a rhetorical question. The liar expects you to immediately think, "Of course not, you wouldn't lie to me." And in that quick, reflexive agreement, they've already won. But stop and think. People don't ask this unless they are lying. It's not a question built to uncover truth. It's a performance designed to tug at your loyalty and your emotions. They want to wrap themselves in your relationship, your history, your shared experiences, so that your logic gets clouded. It's not about whether they would lie. It's about whether they already are. The moment someone says, "Would I lie to you?" don't answer them. Instead, step back and watch how invested they are in convincing you rather than simply showing you. The fourth question is, can't you just let it go? This one isn't about denying what happened, it's about erasing it. It's manipulation dressed as peacekeeping. Liars know that pressing you to let it go makes them look reasonable and makes you look dramatic, petty, or unforgiving if you don't. But the truth is, they're not asking you to let go for your peace. They're asking you to let go for their convenience. They don't want to deal with consequences, accountability, or the discomfort of being exposed. They want you to silence yourself, to bury the truth under a forced smile. When this question shows up, pay attention. Healthy people want pause. Solution. Liars want erasure. There's a difference. And then there's the fifth question, the one that ties all the others together. How could you think that about me? This is perhaps the most emotionally loaded question a manipulator can ask. It's designed to hit you right where you feel loyalty, love, or compassion. By asking how you could possibly think something negative about them, they're weaponizing your empathy against you. They want you to feel guilt for even entertaining the idea that they might not be who they present themselves to be. But remember this, someone who values honesty won't shame you for questioning them. They'll respect your need for clarity. This question is about flipping the script, making you feel like the villain for daring to call out their behavior. And if you take the bait, you'll find yourself apologizing to the very person who's deceiving you. These 5 questions are tools of psychological warfare. They're not random, they're deliberate. They're built to redirect blame, trigger guilt, and cloud your judgment. And here's what makes them dangerous. They sound so normal. People throw them around every day, and sometimes they're even harmless. But when used by a liar, they become surgical instruments, cutting straight into your defenses. That's why awareness matters. When you hear these questions, you have to pause, ground yourself, and remember, the truth doesn't need to beg, corner, or guilt you into believing it. The truth just stands. Liars are betting on your humanity, your desire to keep the peace, to be kind, to avoid conflict. They want to manipulate those qualities so you hand over your power willingly. But you don't have to. When you recognize these patterns, you reclaim your ability to choose how you respond. You stop being pulled into their games. You stop being the person who explains yourself endlessly, who doubts your intuition, who apologizes for things you didn't do. You become the person who sees clearly, who refuses to be pressured by empty words, who holds the line when others try to blur it. Because in the end, manipulation only works when you don't see it. Once you recognize it, once you know the questions liars use, they lose their grip. And instead of being someone who bends under their weight, you become someone they can't move at all. But here's the thing about liars. They never stop testing boundaries. When you don't fall for one tactic, they'll try another. They study you. They look for the cracks, the places where you hesitate, where your emotions take over. That's why learning to recognize these questions isn't just about spotting manipulation in the moment. It's about rewiring how you see yourself. Because manipulation isn't really about the liar. It's about what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you decide you are worth. Every time someone throws one of these questions at you, it's an invitation to self-doubt. Why don't you trust me? And suddenly you're questioning your own intuition. Don't you believe me? And suddenly you're afraid of looking unkind. Would I lie to you? And suddenly you're clinging to loyalty instead of facts. Can't you just let it go? And suddenly you're questioning whether you're too sensitive. How could you think that about me? And suddenly you feel guilt for seeing the truth. Do you notice the pattern? None of these questions are about them. They're all about bending you. And if you bend enough times, eventually you break. This is why self-awareness is your armor. When you hear these words, when you feel that tightening in your chest or that guilt rising in your throat, that's the moment you remind yourself, I am not the problem here, because manipulators want you to carry their weight. They want you to absorb their lies so they can walk away clean, but that's not your job. Your job is to honor the truth you feel, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Think about how much strength it takes to hold on to your truth when someone you care about is trying to twist it. It's not easy. It's so much simpler to just give in, to nod along, to swallow your doubts. But that's how people lose themselves. Little by little, piece by piece, until one day they don't even trust their own judgment anymore. You can't live a strong, confident life if you're always outsourcing your truth to someone else. You have to anchor it deep inside you, so no matter what words someone throws your way, you stay grounded. Liars rely on speed. They want to push you into answering right away, before you've had time to think. That's why these questions are so effective. They hit you emotionally, and emotions are fast. Fear, guilt, love, loyalty, they surge in an instant. But logic, clarity, those require space. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do when faced with manipulation is to slow down. Breathe, pause. You don't owe anyone an immediate response. You don't owe anyone an explanation that satisfies their demands. You owe yourself the time to listen to your own instincts. When someone says, "Why don't you trust me?" instead of answering, try asking yourself, what have they done to earn my trust? When they say, "Don't you believe me?" remind yourself, belief isn't the same as proof. When they say, "Would I lie to you?" remember, anyone is capable of lying if it serves them. When they say, "Can't you just let it go?" ask yourself, am I letting go for peace, or am I letting go so they avoid accountability? And when they say, "How could you think that about me?" tell yourself, it's not cruel to see someone as they are. It's cruel to force myself to ignore it. Every one of those inner questions shifts the power back to you. And that's where it belongs, because liars will always try to pull the spotlight away from their behavior and onto you. Or reaction. They want you flustered, defensive, emotional. They want you explaining, apologizing, rationalizing. Don't give them that gift. If they're lying, the burden is on them, not you. This doesn't mean you have to become hard or cynical. It doesn't mean you walk around distrusting everyone. It means you balance your heart with your mind. You can be compassionate without being naive. You can be open without being unguarded. And you can give people the benefit of the doubt without handing them your peace of mind. That's what strength looks like. It's not shutting everyone out. It's knowing you can stand your ground no matter who tries to sway you. There will be people in your life who test this over and over again. Sometimes it's strangers, sometimes it's colleagues, and sometimes it's the people closest to you. And those last ones are the hardest. Because when someone you love or respect asks you these questions, the temptation to fold is almost overwhelming. You think, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to create conflict. Maybe I am overreacting. That's exactly the opening a liar needs. They lean on your care for them because they know you won't want to risk the relationship. But ask yourself, what kind of relationship requires you to ignore your truth in order to preserve it? That's not love. That's control. Every time you catch one of these manipulative questions and refuse to let it sway you, you're building a muscle. At first it feels uncomfortable, even painful, like stretching against resistance. But over time, you grow stronger. You stop being as easily moved by guilt or fear. You stop needing everyone's approval. And eventually, you start to see through people's words before they even finish speaking. You can feel the manipulation before it fully lands, and instead of being hooked, you're already free. And freedom, that's the point. Because liars don't just want you to believe their words. They want to own your perception of reality. They want to define what's true for you. And if they succeed, they don't just control the moment. They control the direction of your life. But when you reclaim your truth, when you stop answering their manipulative questions and start asking your own, you take that power back. You decide what's real, what matters, and what you will or will not accept. You were not put here to live under someone else's script. You were not put here to shrink yourself so that liars could feel comfortable. You were not put here to carry guilt for seeing what is right in front of you. You were put here to stand tall in your own truth, to protect your boundaries, to choose integrity over illusion. That is your responsibility, and it is also your freedom. So the next time someone throws one of these 5 questions at you, don't see it as a trap. See it as a test, a chance to practice your strength, a chance to remind yourself that you are not obligated to believe words that don't match actions, that you don't owe anyone blind trust, that you can be both kind and firm, compassionate and discerning, because the people who deserve to be in your life will never need to manipulate you to stay there. And the ones who do, they'll find they can't move you anymore. And when that happens, something shifts. You stop fearing manipulation because you've mastered recognition. You stop worrying about lies because you know they can't pierce your clarity. And you stop handing over your power because you finally see it was never theirs to take in the first place. The real danger of manipulation is not just that someone lies to you. Lies can be uncovered, and truth eventually rises to the surface. The deeper danger is that manipulation erodes your relationship with yourself. When someone asks, "Why don't you trust me?" enough times, you begin to wonder if your instincts are broken. When they ask, "Don't you believe me?" often enough, you start to feel guilty for needing proof. That's how liars win, not by convincing you of their lies, but by convincing you to abandon your own judgment. The more you silence that inner voice, the easier it is for others to control you. But here's the truth. Your instincts are not broken. They've been with you since you were a child, guiding you through situations long before you had words to explain what you felt. That knot in your stomach, that tension in your chest, that unease you can't quite explain, that's your body recognizing patterns and warning you. Manipulators want to talk you out of those signals. They want to replace your inner compass with their words. The greatest act of defiance is listening to yourself anyway. Think about how much more powerful you are when you stand firm in that. Someone asks, "Would I lie to you?" Instead of answering, you lean back, you breathe, and you think, "You already are." They say, "Can't you just let it go?" Instead of surrendering, you think, "You're asking me to bury the truth, but I don't bury what matters." They say, "How could you think that about me?" And you stand still, calm and clear, knowing that it is not cruel to see what someone is showing you. This is what strength looks like. It's not loud or aggressive. It's calm, unshakable presence. And people feel it. When you stop bending to manipulation, manipulators feel it immediately. They sense the shift. Suddenly their old tactics don't work. The guilt doesn't land, the pressure doesn't shake you, the appeals to loyalty don't stick. And you know what happens? They either escalate or retreat. Some will try harder, pushing buttons with more intensity, raising the emotional stakes to see if you'll fold. But others, most, will eventually walk away, because manipulation only works on those who give it life. Without your cooperation, their words have no weight. This isn't just about protecting yourself from liars, it's about creating a new standard for every interaction in your life. When you refuse to answer manipulative questions, you send a message. You value truth over comfort, integrity over illusion, and respect over control. That standard changes how people treat you. Honest people will respect it because they have nothing to hide. Dishonest people will resent it because it exposes them. Either way, you win. You either deepen the relationships that deserve you, or you shed the ones that don't. And think about the freedom in that. How many times have you carried guilt for questioning someone? How many nights have you replayed conversations in your head, wondering if you were too harsh, too suspicious, too unforgiving? That cycle ends when you understand that asking questions, trusting your instincts, and holding people accountable is not cruelty. It's clarity. You're not being difficult. You're being discerning. And discerning people build stronger, healthier lives. Every manipulative question is a mirror. It shows you not just the liar's tactics, but your own vulnerabilities. If "don't you believe me" works on you, maybe it means you're afraid of being seen as unkind. If "can't you just let it go" works on you, maybe it means you've been conditioned to prioritize peace over truth. If "how could you think that about me" works on you, maybe it means you're still carrying the belief that love requires blindness. Seeing this is not weakness. It's growth, because once you know your pressure points, you can fortify them. This is why awareness is such a powerful weapon. Awareness is like light in a dark room. Once it's on, the shadows can't hide. Manipulators thrive in the dark. They thrive in confusion, guilt, and doubt. But the moment you see their tactics clearly, their power evaporates. They're no longer mysterious or intimidating. They're predictable. And once someone becomes predictable, they can no longer control you. But awareness is not enough. You have to practice. You have to catch yourself in real time. The next time someone asks you a manipulative question, notice what happens in your body. Do you feel your shoulders tighten? Does your heart race? Do you feel the urge to explain yourself, to defend, to appease? That's the pull of manipulation. That's the moment to pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, whose comfort am I prioritizing right now? Mine or theirs? Whose truth am I protecting, theirs or mine? That split second of awareness changes everything. It gives you back the steering wheel before the conversation drives off course. And it's not about confronting every liar with anger or accusation. Sometimes the strongest response is no response. Silence is powerful. Refusal is powerful. Boundaries spoken calmly and firmly are powerful. You don't need to convince a liar that you see the truth. You only need to live as if you do. That alone unsettles them more than any argument ever could. Understand this. Liars manipulate because it works. They've used these questions before, and people have bent to them. They've seen how quickly guilt can silence someone, how easily loyalty can cloud judgment. But when you stop playing the part they've written for you, you break the pattern. And once a pattern breaks, it loses its grip. Imagine how your life changes when you no longer fall for these traps. Imagine conversations where you don't spiral into self-doubt, where you don't feel forced to defend your perspective, where you don't hand over your peace of mind just to keep someone else comfortable. Imagine walking into every interaction with the quiet confidence that no matter what words someone uses, you will stay anchored in your truth. That's not just self-protection. That's free. Dom. And freedom is contagious. The more you stand in your truth, the more others see it and are inspired to do the same. You become an example, not because you lecture, but because you live it. People notice when you don't fold under pressure. They notice when you don't flinch at guilt trips. They notice when you carry yourself with calm certainty, even when someone is trying to twist reality around you, and that example gives them permission to rise in their own lives. Your strength becomes a spark. So when liars ask their questions, when they push, when they prod, when they pressure, you are not just defending yourself. You are building a world where truth stands taller than manipulation. You are showing yourself and everyone watching that no one has the right to dictate your reality but you. And every time you choose clarity over confusion, self-trust over guilt, and boundaries over pressure, you are not just surviving manipulation, you are rewriting the rules of the game. Because the truth is, manipulation isn't just about one conversation or one person. It's about patterns that play out in every area of your life. At work, it's the colleague who tries to corner you with questions like, "Don't you believe I handled that already?" In relationships, it's the partner who asks, "How could you think I'd do something like that?" In friendships, it's the person who pushes you with, "Can't you just let it go?" These questions show up everywhere because they're universal tools, and once you know how they work, you'll start to see them everywhere too. That awareness isn't paranoia, it's power. What you have to understand is that liars thrive on your silence. They thrive on the hesitation that creeps in when you're afraid of being too direct, too firm, too honest. They rely on you softening your words, second-guessing your instincts, apologizing for asking for clarity, and if you don't, they win before the game even begins. But when you stand your ground, when you refuse to shrink, something powerful happens. You force them to face themselves, and that's what liars fear most. Not your anger, not your suspicion, but your clarity. Clarity is dangerous to those who manipulate because it shines a light they can't dim. A liar can only function when the room is clouded with doubt, when people are scrambling to defend themselves, when the focus shifts from their behavior to your reaction. But when you stand calm and unshaken, when you don't bite the hook of their questions, the light turns back on them. And in that light, the truth becomes impossible to hide. That's why manipulation feels like pressure. It's not just about words, it's about energy. They push, and they push fast, because they don't want you to have time to think. They want you emotional, flustered, rushing to respond. That's why your greatest weapon is slowing down, taking space, breathing before you answer. Every pause is a disruption to their strategy. Every silence is a reminder that you are not their puppet. Think of it like this. Manipulators throw you a ball covered in fire. The moment you catch it, you're the one who gets burned. But you don't have to catch it. You can let it drop. You can step back and watch it roll away. Their words only have power if you pick them up and make them your burden. The second you realize that, you stop playing their game. And here's the part most people don't tell you. Manipulation can only continue if you need something from the manipulator more than you need your own truth. That's the hook. If you need their approval, you'll bend. If you need their love, you'll excuse. If you need their validation, you'll silence your instincts. That's why the ultimate strength is building yourself in a way where you no longer crave what liars dangle in front of you. Because once you know you don't need what they're offering, you're free. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed quiet because you didn't want to lose someone's affection? How many times have you doubted yourself because you didn't want to be the difficult one? How many times have you let something slide because you thought peace was worth more than your voice? That's how liars feed. Not because they're stronger, but because you're afraid of the cost of standing firm. But think carefully. What is the greater cost? Losing a relationship built on lies, or losing yourself one compromise at a time? When you choose yourself, when you prioritize your truth over someone else's manipulation, you send a message. You cannot be bought with guilt, pressured with loyalty, or controlled with doubt. That message is bigger than words. It's in your posture, your tone, your silence, your refusal to explain what doesn't need explaining. It's in the way you carry yourself like someone who knows that the truth doesn't need to apologize for existing. And yes, it will unsettle people. It will anger those who have benefited from your compliance. They may accuse you of being cold, untrusting, or harsh. They may push harder, raising the emotional stakes to make you fold. But you must remember, this isn't about their comfort. This is about your freedom. You are not responsible for how a liar feels when confronted by your clarity. You are responsible only for staying true to yourself. That's where real confidence comes from. Not from being the loudest in the room, not from winning every argument, but from knowing that no one can shake you off your foundation. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to defend or justify. It simply stands. And when you stand like that, when you refuse to be swayed by manipulative questions, you radiate a power that no liar can touch. Think about the 5 questions again. Each one is a test. Why don't you trust me? Is testing weight. Ether, you'll hand over your instincts. Don't you believe me? is testing whether you'll surrender your judgment. Would I lie to you? Is testing whether you'll place loyalty over reality. Can't you just let it go? Is testing whether you'll prioritize their comfort over accountability. And how could you think that about me? Is testing whether you'll carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. These are not real questions. They are traps. But every trap is also an opportunity. An opportunity to stand firmer, to trust deeper in yourself, to rise above the games. And once you pass those tests enough times, something incredible happens. The questions stop working. You hear them, but they don't land. You recognize them, but you don't react. And eventually, liars realize you're no longer an easy target. That's when they either adjust to the truth or they leave. Either outcome is a win, because either way, you are no longer under their control. What you're building is not just resistance, it's resilience. Resistance is saying no in the moment. Resilience is carrying that strength into every part of your life. Resilience means that even when you're tired, even when you're vulnerable, even when you want to give in for the sake of peace, you don't betray yourself. You hold the line. You remind yourself that short-term discomfort is nothing compared to long-term freedom. And make no mistake, this is not just about liars. It's about you reclaiming your life. Every manipulative question you reject is a step toward becoming the person who refuses to live small. It's a declaration that you will no longer give away your clarity, your self-trust, your boundaries for the sake of keeping others comfortable. It's the quiet revolution of standing in your truth, no matter who tries to bend it. So when the questions come again, and they will, you'll be ready. You'll hear them, and instead of shrinking, you'll stand taller. Instead of doubting, you'll trust yourself more. Instead of bending, you'll hold firm. And in that moment,